Good evening. Just want to show you a couple of things. Right, so I'm really going to hit this hard. Oof. Yeah, you really feel powerful, don't you? Whacking it, punching it. Now let's try another way. Let's just see if we can just get really fast. Swings all over the place. Finished. Everything seemed to get there at different times. Okay, now let's just have a look at this one. Now the strange thing about that's the one that goes furthest, that's the one that goes straightest, and that's the one that has the greatest level of consistency. So I'll leave it up to you. Okay, I'm just going to take a seat because I want this to be a little bit different. And I'm sorry folks, I'm not going to answer any questions tonight. I decided, I had a plan there. Okay. One of the problems, you don't work with animals and children and wind, which is very difficult if you live on the coast as I do. But I just thought this was a bit different tonight rather than the other settings, even if it is a little bit chilly out here, but still, we'll cope. I'm English after all. Now, this is just really a chat. I've just shown you what punching and really feeling strong and powerful looks like. And I've shown you what a really fast swing looks like with a very dodgy finish, and I've shown you the easiest swing, and hopefully you heard the different results that you get. So tonight is more about how rather than what, because easiest swing, and I train my coaches to coach, not to teach. Teachers tell people what to do. So if you're ever helping a golfer, try not to tell them what to do. You see a guy and you think, oh, he really could do with watching Brian's videos, buying his book, he could do the easiest swing. Because what he's doing is nowhere near easy. And then you start telling them what they should do. You should look at this and do, but it doesn't work. I get my coaches come to me in the early days and they say, Brian, I really have a problem because I can't make my student. Your job isn't to make anybody do anything. Present them with things and leave their intelligence to work the rest of it out. You've got to give people the benefit of the doubt because people are generally intelligent. There's some exceptions obviously. Anyway, we won't go to that. A politician's result. Anyway, we'll go there. Okay, so and it's always quite interesting. I had a little thought because my late in my career success, because I'm an overnight success after 50 years. So it started with the book, but really it was the video, and it was the silent video that really switched everything on. So I've gone from a silent video to right the way through the gamut, and I'm now here at just talking to you. Well, I'll leave you to decide what you think is best. Hopefully a blend. So this is a little bit about how we coach as opposed to what we coach. I think you know enough now about what we coach, and there'll be more because there's still loads of questions to cover in the next couple of weeks. I mentioned something about what happened to me when I was a 10-year-old, and in the UK we have a thing called the 11 plus. So it's, for me I was 10 years old, but it's generally speaking when you're at 11 you're in what we call prep school, primary school, up until the age of 11. Then you take this exam, and then you either go into high stream, which is called grammar school, or secondary. And it's a very decisive exam because it really can determine the rest of your life. Taking an exam at the age of 11. Well, I was at a school where it was a Catholic school, and we had a Brother Owen who was our form master that year, and he prepared us all year for this exam. And he was a tough man. Everybody in the school was frightened of him. He was just one of those hard men. And I learnt a bit about him during the year that he wasn't quite so hard after all, but we were still fearful of him. And we went home not the day before the 11 plus, which was on a Friday. We went home on a Wednesday night, and in retrospect you look back and think, yeah, we were anxious, we were worried, we thought we were in for the toughest day of our lives. He was going to put us through everything to make sure that we then did well in the exam. None of it. we spent the day out. We went to Chester Zoo, we went to the cathedral in the morning and the zoo in the afternoon, and then went home with strict instructions to have a bath, something to eat and bed. Weren't allowed to open any books. His job was done. Now, what's fascinating about that is that when we prepare for a tournament, what do we do the night before the tournament? You see it, the guys are out there on the range, hitting balls, trying to find their swing. If you haven't got it the day before, you won't get it on the day. And I think that when you practice before a tournament, there's a way of doing that which is actually far wiser than whacking a load of balls. If I've got time, we'll come on to that later. In fact, this is scripted, but let's change the script. I was playing in France, and this wasn't a tournament on the circuit, but it was a big tournament. It was an open championship, pros and amateurs, so all the top players from the centre region, which is a very big region in France. It goes from not far from Paris all the way down to Bordeaux. And so there were about a full complement of players, like 156 I think there were. And it was played on a new course with the biggest, slopiest, sometimes 3-tiered, fastest greens I had ever played on. It was the nearest thing I've ever got to Augusta. And I had a practice round, and I hit the ball really poorly in the practice round, but I couldn't get over the fact that you just couldn't keep the ball on the greens. It was so fast. Came off the course, went and practiced my putting. I had to find a way of striking the ball positively without it flying off the green. So I spent 2 hours. I spent 2 hours before my round the next day, which was a Saturday. It was a 2-round Saturday-Sunday tournament, and I just spent all my time getting really delicate so I could strike or accelerate and not go too far. It was a long course and the scoring was high, and I shot I think 76, and I was joint leader overnight. So I went out last on the second day, and I can remember I went to the course, 2 hours on the putting green, same thing, very delicate. Got my putting really nice and calm. And then I went over to the practice ground to see some of my mates who were playing, and they said, "Where are your clubs?" I said, "Well," I've done my practice." They said, "What, you're leading the tournament and you're not hitting any shots?" I said, "No." I said, "This is all about the greens." Went out and actually played quite well again. Unfortunately, there was a young tour pro who'd been an ex-champion of France, and he shot a wonderful score and beat me, but I could finish second. So, which at that time, you know, I was 15 years older than him, so that was a success. Going to the range to hit shots before you play, as far as I'm concerned, is a very risky business, because you get out there and suddenly you're slicing, suddenly you're topping it, panic sets in, and you walk to the first tee and you're a bag of nerves. I don't do that. Chipping and putting. Get my ball striking, I'm chipping and putting, so I'm not hitting the ball too hard, I'm getting into a nice rhythm, walk to the first tee feeling good about myself. That's the purpose of practicing before you play. Okay, again, these are not directions, these are not me telling you what to do, they're just experiences which help you make up your own mind. And that's what coaching is all about. And I'd just like to tell you a little story, and fun enough, it's exactly 12 years ago, literally to the day. I was in LA, in America, and I was on the first ever Inner Game Coaches Conference with Timothy Galway. And there were 60 delegates, mostly business coaches, because he's become a business coach, gone from tennis through golf and now business. And we did a bit of tennis on the first afternoon, conference centre in the morning, and then tennis in the afternoon. The second day, conference in the morning and the afternoon. Split into 2 groups. The golfers went with Sean, his assistant, and another young English golf pro was there. Only 2 golf pros on this. Not one American golf pro was there, which I found strange. And they went onto the range, and the beginners went with Tim onto the putting green, and Tim said to me, "Would you assist me?" Wow, privilege. So, and he had people organised in groups of 3, and there would have been 10 groups of 3 on a putting green, so it was quite cramped for space. And there were, in every group of 3, there was a player, a coach and an observer. And so we were just wandering about, and I was just following him. I was not really getting involved. And we came to these 3 people, and there was a blonde Swedish girl who lived and worked in America. And she was whacking these putts off the green all over the place. And my first thought was, this is dangerous. My second thought was, how do you tell her, oh, you're hitting it too hard? He was very calm, and he just watched. And then after 2 or 3 which he'd whacked a million miles, and this, we're talking about a 20-foot putt here, he said to her, he said to the group, he said, do either of you other 2 know this woman? And one of them said, yes, we work together. Oh, very studied man, very quiet. So Tim said, what quality would you like her to demonstrate on this next putt? And the guy thought for a moment. He said, caring. I'm thinking, I don't know what's going on here. So he then turned to the woman and he said, could you demonstrate caring on this next putt? And she hit the most beautifully rhythmical putt to about 2 inches from the hole. And I looked at that and I thought, I don't know what's going on here, because this is completely outside of my sphere of knowledge about teaching or even coaching. And I was beginning to get into coaching at that time anyway. And then of course I thought about that a long time afterwards. That was also some awareness about her and her work colleague. Obviously she was a bit like a bull in a china shop. So when he said caring, she obviously doesn't care very much for people. So it's a very interesting thing, but the fact that she immediately putted better was quite interesting. Coaching is helping you to some awareness, and sometimes it's a concept, it's a word, it's a challenge, and these are subtle things. These are not telling people what to do. That's very, very limited in my experience. The last thing to tell you, and this is a personal thing. I went up to see Mike Dealey, who at that time was one of my coaches. He'd just come back from working in Jersey for 20 odd years, and he came back to a job in, I think it was Shropshire, sorry, in England. And I went up to see him and his wife and stayed there. And I said, when I got to his golf club, I said, have you got 10 or 15 minutes just to watch me in the bunkers? Because I was just struggling in bunkers at the time. So we went out, and the bunker was dreadful. The weather had been dreadful, there was a lot of rain, the bunker was in a dreadful state. So anyway, so he said, we're going to hit 1 or 2. So I hit 1 or 2. And then he said to me, he said, could you just tell me where in the swing you feel the weight of the club? And not the sort of thing you think of, is it? So I hit a couple of shots, and I said, I actually feel the club nicely on the backswing. I said, after that, it's all a bit of a blur. Right, he said. I said, how about, could you just focus your attention and your awareness on getting that heavy feel of the club all the way through, from start to finish? Well, I just hit a series of beautiful bunker shots from dreadful sand. So he gave me a concept that corrected whatever he saw that was wrong in my golf swing. And this is how we tend to work. And also we're helping people to find the words, the key concepts that help them, that they can take away, that can be things that you say to yourself all the time. And when you find your 2 or 3 things, in a way you've got your method. Not always about swinging the golf club. It's as much about your attitude, your feeling, and how your awareness of your golf swing actually works. Awareness cures, trying fails. And the problem in this game is we slip into trying ever so easily. Well, you might just hear my alarm's gone off because I've got a phone call coming in a minute, so I do apologise. I hope it's not getting too dark, and I hope that you're beginning to enjoy a rather nice sunset. We'll do this another day when it's a little bit warmer, because to be honest, I might be British, but this is all a bit too cold for me. Anyway, we'll come back with your questions next time. So thanks very much, and I'll be very interested to hear if me sitting here chatting is interesting, or whether you'd prefer me to actually deal with your questions. Anyway, Keep the questions coming. I'm really enjoying myself, and there's a very positive reaction going on out there, so thank you very much. See you next time.